The year is 2008 and life is good. Lady Gaga just exploded on the charts with her first two singles, Just Dance and Poker Face, and AKON was already an established hitmaker of the time, having success after success. But many seem to forget that if it wasn't for AKON, there might have never been a Lady Gaga, and some speculate that there might have been a fallout between the two somewhere around 2011 and 2012. So let's discuss. Now, before being discovered by AKON, Gaga was already making some waves behind the scenes of the music industry, as she was already signed to Interscope by Vincent Herbert. But at the same time, she had a publishing contract with Sony, writing for artists such as Britney Spears, New Kids on the Block, Fergie, and Pussycat Dolls. Despite her immense talents both as a writer and as a musician, Interscope didn't push her as an artist due to her music being considered too racy, too dance-oriented, and too underground. But Gaga, being confident, she replied to the executives, "My name is Lady Gaga. I've been on the music scene for years and I'm telling you, this is what's next." So one day AKON was recording in the studio with Red One, Gaga's future go-to producer, and she was brought in to sing some reference vocals on one of AKON's songs. After AKON seeing both her vocal abilities but also being impressed by her visual presentation, he saw huge unexploited potential in her and decided to contact Jimmy Iovine, the head of Interscope but also co-founder of Beats by Dr. Dre, to enter into a joint venture with Con Live and share Gaga as an artist. AKON really knew what he had on his hands, because as soon as Gaga got signed to him, they started working on her first album, The Fame, and the first two singles, Just Dance and Poker Face, both hit the #1 spot on the Hot 100. It was clear that Gaga was poised to be the next big thing, and AKON had a goldmine on his hands. Seeing the immense success of The Fame, they quickly pushed out an EP which served as a continuation to the album titled as The Fame Monster. And a monster it truly was, as it spawned 3 more hit singles in the form of Bad Romance, Telephone featuring Beyonce, but also Alejandro. And the EP is also significant for creating the Gaga that we know and love today, as she finally could manifest her full-blown monster persona. Don't get me wrong, The Fame is a really great album, I absolutely love it, but it shows that it's not fully herself, as probably there was still some studio interference here and there, asking for elements to be toned down. But after the smash success of her initial singles, she finally had the freedom that she so much craved for, and the audiences simply loved this new persona of Gaga and managed to propel her to new heights. But even the Fame Monster was tame when compared to what was about to come when her second and last album under AKON, Born This Way, hit the market. The album got even more eccentric, and sales also got bigger, as it sold more than 1 million copies first week. It can be argued that the sales were inflated by the album being sold on Amazon for $1, but till this day artists are known for inflating their numbers by all sorts of clever bundling tactics. Even if we don't count the sales from Amazon, she still sold more than 500,000 units, which is impressive nevertheless. Seeing this, it would have been a no-brainer for AKON to continue the partnership. But this didn't happen, so let's see what happened between the two and why did the two part ways. According to AKON's own words, he has cashed out before it was too late, which at first you might think it's a proper dick move, as he didn't believe in her anymore and possibly foresaw a downfall of hers. But there is definitely more to the story than it meets the eye. Now we could argue that Gaga sort of fared worse commercially with her third album, Art Pop, but it was a success nevertheless, and till this day Gaga is still dominating the charts and is loved by millions of of fans or monsters from all around the globe. If we look a bit deeper, things were more complicated and more complex than AKON simply dumping Gaga, because really big changes were going on in the background that hampered both AKON's but also T-Pain's career, and since then neither really managed to recover. T-Pain was also signed to one of AKON's other labels. Now, I know it's a bit confusing as AKON had two record labels. So, first he had Con Live, where Lady Gaga and other pop and dance acts were signed to, and the label was in partnership with Interscope, Geffen and A&M. Meanwhile, AKON had another label too, under the name of Convict Music, which was more rap oriented and was publishing his and T-Pain's music, and unlike Con Live, Convict Music was signed under Jive Records, and this is where the problems have started for AKON. Now, Jive Records was owned by BMG, which in 2008 was bought by Sony Music Entertainment, and Jive didn't really have a long life after this, as Sony completely overhauled it by absorbing it into RCA Records. You can imagine that both AKON and T-Pain have found themselves in hot water as the teams that used to push them and promote them suddenly vanished as Sony was restructuring and optimizing everything for profits. All this showed as both AKON's and T-Pain's albums underperformed after 2008 and haven't really recovered since. AKON probably realized that he doesn't stand a chance anymore, having to compete with an overcrowded roster of artists within RCA. He had to somehow get hold of some cash that could give him a safety net for his future. Thus, it's safe to say that AKON, seeing that Lady Gaga was still pulling in phenomenal numbers, probably negotiated a nice deal with Interscope to sell his 50% of the joint venture, and we can blame AKON as in 2011 Gaga was literally at her peak following the smash success of Born This Way, so probably he knew that there is no way to top the smash success of this album and negotiated a really sweet deal with Interscope that enabled him to retire. Because let's be honest, we would have done the same, and I'll give a really bad example, but hear me out. Let's say that we have a racing dog that has won literally every award possible and his value skyrocketed and everyone is lining up to buy it. There are three possibilities for the owner. You hold on to him and it brings you a nice income stream for the rest of your life till the dog dies. The second option is you wait a little bit more thinking that it might win again next year and possibly sell at an even higher price. But in this case there is always the possibility of something happening or not winning again, thus the selling price is still high but not as high as it was at its peak. Or number 3, someone comes up to you and offers you tons of cash, like proper shit tons of cash straight after winning the competition, and buys your dog, and now it's not your responsibility anymore, as it's the responsibility of the new owner to see what will happen afterwards, whether he'll win or not win anymore. So you got shit tons of money and you got no worries anymore because it's not your dog anymore. And AKON chose this later option. He sold at a peak that probably knew was not achievable anymore and made probably money he couldn't have made after the release of Art Pop, because Interscope probably would have told him, look, your asset is still really valuable, but considering the current numbers, it's not as valuable as it once was, so we'll offer you maybe 25% less for your asking price. So let's not blame AKON, as if we would have seen that our own career was doing badly due to uncontrollable factors such as label issues, but we had this really big asset that was probably worth tens of millions of dollars, maybe even more, we would have sold our shares of Lady Gaga too. Now before moving on, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more awesome content like this. While doing the research for this video, I noticed that people in the comments slander AKON and hold bad blood against him for dropping Gaga and are critical of him for using the word cashed out, thinking negatively of everything that went down. But I think it's exactly the opposite of what many think. I think there's no bad blood between Lady Gaga and AKON at all, as in the following years, AKON was always talking kindly and fondly about Gaga and said that he always saw their relationship as one of mentorship. Meanwhile, Gaga hasn't really addressed their relationship, but just because she hasn't addressed it, it doesn't mean that there is bad blood between the two, because let's look at things from another perspective. I think that AKON actually did Gaga a favor, because by giving up his stake from her catalog, this might have freed up some of the royalties, and from the 50% of AKON, a part might have gone to Interscope, but I think that a chunk of the 50% might have gone to Gaga, considering her immense leverage at the time. Because by that time, she was already a global phenomenon, so there is a possibility that she might have negotiated a higher stake from the earnings now that there were less parties involved in the contract. And if it didn't happen, then it definitely offered her more room to breathe at future negotiations, as this time it was a direct negotiation with Interscope itself rather than with AKON Live, who acted as a middleman or as a mediator between Gaga and Interscope. So overall, I don't think there is any bad blood between Gaga and AKON. On the contrary, I think that the parting of the two was beneficial for each other, as this has enabled AKON to get a huge safety net that would have enabled him to retire early and not be worried about his own dwindling musical career, while at the same time Gaga possibly earned more from her own music rather than having to give up another big chunk of her royalties. Let's not forget that she was signed early on in her career to a really shitty contract most probably, and she must have been getting only pennies of what AKON and Interscope was making of her music. Thus AKON might have started to feel bad and freed up his share to Gaga. Now it's your turn to let me know what do you think. Did AKON do the right thing? And do you think that there is any bad blood between the two? And do you think that we would have had Gaga if it wasn't for AKON? Please let me know all this down in the comment section. Once again, this has been Trapology 101. Till next time, stay safe and see you soon, folks.